Hello, everyone. Let's take a look at installing VirtualBox from beginning to end. So, first thing, virtualbox.org, or just type VirtualBox in your search or address bar. This is the website, virtualbox.org. That is the correct site. Make sure that you're going to the correct site. And here it is. This is done by Oracle. We're going to go ahead and get started by downloading. You can also go here to download. Those are the same things. Now, notice on this screen, basically, we've got a little description at the top. Then we've got what packages we might want, and then an extension pack, which we will want. You don't have to have the extension pack, but you'll want it. Okay, over here under VirtualBox platform packages, they're talking about what kind of computer operating system you are running. So when they're talking about the host, again, that goes back to the other video that I hope you watched. If you haven't, then you probably want to stop this one and watch the description of what virtual machines are actually doing and how they work, so you'll understand the terminology and other settings and things that you have to do in this. So you're running Windows. I'm running Windows. If you're running Mac OS, then you want to run either, do you have an Intel Mac or an Apple Silicon Mac? Otherwise, Windows hosts, that's what I am. Let's go ahead and do the download right here. It's going to download this file. So I'm running this in Brave, which is basically Chrome without, watching everything you're doing. And there it is. It's done. So I'm going to go ahead and just take a look in the folder. Yes, we could just click this and have it launch it, but I want you to see where it is. It's in downloads. That's the file. It's an install application. So we'll go ahead and install this. And this is going to install our hypervisor type 2. That's what we're doing. So yes, go ahead and install that. It popped up on my other screen. Let me drag it over. This is what you'll see. It's a standard setup. You basically have to agree to their terms. You don't usually want to change any of this stuff. We want this installed, right? And you can, standard stuff. We want that VirtualBox Python support. And then it warns us. So this warning is just to tell you, hey, look, if you're doing other stuff on your computer, your network interface is going to go down temporarily because we're going to make sure it's there. And then this tells us, hey, this Python core is not in here. So it says, these bindings. So when you install Oracle VirtualBox, Python bindings requires Python core packages. And this is what it needs. Now, the truth is you're not going to normally be using the Python portions of this. And so you can say proceed with installation now, say yes, and on you go. Now, if you think, well, maybe I will do that. I will use Python, I don't know. Then I'll show you as well. Okay, this is where you go to get Python and put it on. All right, so yes, we wanted to do all these things. This is just a standard install. That's why I'm kind of clicking through it, because you should have seen a standard install on a Windows machine before. And there we go. It's copying files. It'll be done in just a minute. Now, the other thing that we need, right, this is going to get VirtualBox up and running, the hypervisor portion, but we need the operating system, right? And it's like, okay, I'm done. You want to start? You bet. Let's go ahead and start that. And this is what it looks like. That's it. VirtualBox is done. It's ready to go. Now, I am going to, I'll just leave this open. I'll minimize it. I'll minimize this. And now let's go ahead and get this extension pack. So I left this page open for this reason. I'm going to get this extension pack. Now, this extension pack, I've already got it right there because I've done this before, but this is a newer one. This is a long time ago. So I'll get a newer one. This extension pack basically does exactly what it says. It extends some of the abilities of VirtualBox within certain operating systems. And so it's very helpful. Usually you're running standard operating systems that would normally be used. For instance, Windows, inside of Windows, you know, you install Windows 10 in a virtual machine, Fedora, Linux, you know, that we use the big stuff, right? We use the standard stuff. And so this will help you. I'm going to go ahead and install it. You can read all the details. In this particular licensing, they make you scroll down before you can agree. And then basically it's really quick. It just gets that done, and the extension pack is now a part of this VirtualBox. Let's go over, and we want to get something that we use in class. We use two different things. In the security classes, we use Kali Linux, and that's its official name. So lots of times we just call it Kali, but it's actually, its name is Kali Linux. And there it is, kali.org. The other one we might use, so I'm going to go through the different ones that we use, is Fedora. So put in Fedora Linux just to make sure we don't get a bunch of hats, because it is a Fedora hat, right? So it's fedoraproject.org. So at this point, basically what I'm doing is saying, okay, so you're in the cybersecurity courses, you'll use both of these. In the operating systems class, we use Fedora. And of course, in the security classes, we use Kali Linux. And if you are in the regular degree, then you don't need Kali, you need Fedora. So I'm going to show you, this is how we download. These are distributions of Linux, right? So on Fedora, we say get Fedora. And it can be confusing as to what you need. So I'm just going to tell you, you need this one, a workstation. A workstation is basically just exactly what you do on a PC. That's considered a workstation. A server would be, I'm going to run a web server or something. The core OS, just the core OS, just the basic portions that you need to run Linux. So you're going to program the rest of it. IoT, Internet of Things. You want to put it on your TV. And cloud. I'm going to run this actually in Azure or on AWS or something like that. Now you also have these other, you got atomic desktops. So basically these have different desktops, GUIs is what I should say. And then spins, meaning, well, these are different installations that are based off of Fedora, but they don't actually control these. These are usually somebody else. So that's, and then labs. So you can actually, like if you were within education and you were, you know, the astronomy teacher, you could just download these labs. In any case, we're going to use the workstation. I was just showing you kind of a little tour of that's what this other stuff means. You don't need it. And if you decide to do that, please do it separately from the workstation. So get the workstation, then come in and do something else with one of these. Make sure you have the version of the stuff we're using in the class, right? That's what I'm saying. So it's not super straightforward, right? And if you're downloading Windows 10, I mean, you can download it. You go to Microsoft and you download Windows 10, and there's not a lot of options. Here, there is. So right here, they've given you another page, and now we're going to say, okay, let's go ahead and download this. And, well, which version? Again, this goes back to the other video I have made. So for Windows, for a standard PC, this is the version we're getting. If you want to know more about that, please make sure that you watch the other video. So I'm going to go ahead and tell it to save that, and it's going to start downloading. And that's going to take some time. This is basically the install CD or DVD for this operating system. And we need that in order to tell VirtualBox what to do with it, right? We need that. We need to install the operating system inside of VirtualBox. So now I'll go over to Kali, show you how to get that. So get Kali. I actually went to the download page, but we'll hit get Kali, and then that's usually what you get. This is usually what you have. You can actually download the virtual machine. So you can actually download this already for VirtualBox. But I'm not going to explain it that way because there's some things that are take it out of it. And you also need to pay attention to the security they set up for you here. So if you're not going to pay attention to that security, you're going to have trouble. So we're going to take a look at installer images and notice that they've got several different things that can happen. So we're going to go to installer images. This, again, all this is other stuff is explained in the other video. We're going to do x86-64. That is standardly what you would do. And I want the complete offline installation. We're going to go ahead and download that. There we are. And there it is. Kali Linux 2024 installer. I'm going to hit save on that. This one will take a little less time, but it's still 4 gigs. So that's going to take some time to download. I'm going to pause it so you don't have to, watch this just sit and spin its wheels while it's getting the download. But just realize it's going to take a while for that to download depending on your internet speeds. Okay, so we have Fedora downloaded. Let's come over to VirtualBox, as it says, Oracle VirtualBox Manager, and get going. We're going to put a new one in. You might think add, but, because you're going to add one, but that's not the case. You're creating a brand new one. Now, you can come to the preferences and change where the stuff is going to be stored. So, for instance, if your C drive is getting a little full and you have an extra hard drive, you can tell it, put this someplace else if you'd like. All right, so we're going to hit new. Now, at this point, see, if I type Fedora, it automatically reads what I typed and says, oh, okay, they're going to type Fedora. This is generally what people want. So nothing really, really big or smart is happening here. It's just reading what you're typing and then choosing what you're probably going to do. It doesn't mean you can't come down here and say, I'm not installing Windows into this at all. You can do something else. It's just that it reads the name. So I'm going to go back and put Fedora. And this is where it's going to put it. I can change it if I want. And then an ISO image. So the ISO is International Standards Organization. It basically means it's a representation of a DVD. So I'm going to go select that. Doesn't have any listed. I'm going to go to downloads because I know that's where it put it. And I'm going to select Fedora. There we are. And then notice down here, it just grays all this out. So when it understands what operating system, because Fedora is a very, very popular one, it basically says, hey, I know what's going on here. I am aware of this one. There's a lot of other Linux distros that you could use, and it won't really know. It'll look at it and go, well, I know it's Linux, but I don't know what else to do. Now, you might think, okay, it's going to do all these automatic settings that are actually absolutely correct. And that's not the case. So it's not that smart. It has detected that it's a 64-bit. And so it's going to put that 64-bit setting in for you. All right, so when we hit next, we come to hardware. And it says right here, look, the base memory that we're going to start you at is 2 gigs. Well, that is way too low for Fedora. We need at least 4. Just clicking on that, hoping it was going to do it for me, but we need 4. Now, it's also going to show you, hey, as far as your system goes, here's the maximum amount. It reads that from the operating system. This is one of the machines that's in our lab, so it's set really high, right? It's got 20 gigs of RAM just for the fact that students might want to run simultaneous VMs, right? They might want to have VirtualBox and 3 different VMs running. And when that happens, it's going to take this amount of RAM away from the system. So that's what they're telling you. Don't take this much. Otherwise, you're going to start really hurting your OS in this area. So because the system has so much, I'm going to say, you know what, let's give it 5. And the honest truth for what we do in Fedora, 5 is going to be enough. So there we go. And this has got 24 CPUs. Now, technically, it really only has 12. It's hyper-threaded. Actually, it's got 16, and then it's some of them are hyper-threaded. Anyway, in any case, it doesn't have a total of 24, but definitely I can give it 2 or 3 without a problem. And so on your own operating system, within your own hardware, you need to pay attention to where that green is and realize that if you start coming into this area, your host OS is really going to suffer. But you can up this as far as you would like. So I'm actually going to put this on 4. That way, I mean, it's got 24 CPUs. We'll be just fine, and this will be really snappy. Now, again, just to point out that when I install Kali on this, and then I decide to have Fedora and Kali running at the same time, if I use these exact same settings, then that means for the VMs, I'm going to be taking up 10 gigs and 8 megabytes, gigabytes, sorry, for the base processors and memory. What am I saying? I'm going to take up 10 gigs of memory and 8 CPUs. I don't know. It's too early in the morning, I think. 8 CPUs. And that's quite a bit if I'm running them side by side. So be aware of that if you decide I'm going to run VM side by side, both of them loaded at the same time, that's going to double up whatever you're doing, right? That's going to take extra space. All right. So remember that, if you're just running one VM at a time inside of your OS, great. You can set this quite a ways up and this one quite a ways up, and it's not really a problem. And you can take this up and down. So later on, you could adjust this later. It's not like this is super, super permanent. But if you're going to run VMs side by side, like I explained, that's why I've included so much on these computer systems so they can run side by side. Then what's going to happen is if I have 2 VMs and they're both taking 5 gigs of RAM, then that'll take 10 gigs, right? That'll take up half of what the operating system has total. And if I give it 4 CPUs and I give the other one 4 CPUs and I run them side by side, then they're using a total of 8 CPUs. So when you're starting to run systems next to each other, that's really where this is going to start to come in and hurt you if you're not aware of how you're setting that. And again, these screens are exactly what the OS is going to see. The OS is not going to see anything beyond this. For instance, I'm going to create a virtual hard disk that this OS is that's all it's going to see. And 15 gigs is really too low for Fedora. I'm going to put 25 gigs in. And it tells me you've got 2 terabytes. Now, it's not telling me how much do you have left out of that. So you can't look at this number and go, yeah, I still have 2 terabytes left for my computer. It doesn't have 2 terabytes left. This is just the total of what you have on the hard disk. Hit next. And basically, this is the summary screen saying this is what I'm setting. And now it's ready to go. Hey, let's go ahead and launch into Fedora here. Got done installing it. Let's go ahead and bring it up. And while that's coming up, notice that Kali Linux down here is powered off. I want to show you something that you ought to do once you verify that your operating system is working, functioning, and everything is great. So once it's started up and oh, okay, this is working. You want to right-click over here, and you can either clone it. So if you have enough space on your computer, this will clone. It gives you the opportunity to do a full clone. A linked clone is not going to help you too much, but a full clone, and that is going to copy everything. It's going to take that entire install and copy it. So that's really nice. It's really nice because then you have this backup of the way things were when you started. Create a short, sorry, I need to click here, a short little snapshot. And what I mean by a short little snapshot is that it's really quick. Snapshot basically kind of takes a picture of the way things were in that operating system, and it's really, really quick to do. So you just hit take, and I will put working on this. You name it something. You don't have to. You can give it a description as well. And now the current state is underneath this working snapshot. Basically what that means for me is I can launch this and, everything's working fine, everything's going right. And maybe I do a system update and the system update gets hosed. And now it's like, oh man, things aren't working the way that they used to. Well, backing out of that can be quite difficult, right? There's a lot of things you've got to do to turn it back to what it was, unless you've taken a snapshot. So right over here, you're usually on details, and you can go to snapshot right there, and you can check out other things too. But you're usually on details. That's usually what shows. And so you can do a snapshot of any of the operating systems that you have. And then if that problem occurs, right, I can come back to snapshots and I can double click this working right here, or I can click it once and say start. Now, the reason start's not available to me right now is because of this current state, right? So I can tell it to go to working and restore that. And it basically will take anything that's happened from working to current state and chuck it in the garbage, and now you're running again. The ability to do this is one of the biggest reasons why virtualization is used with servers, because now you can safely do an update on a server, and if something goes wrong, you can just quickly restore it back to what it was. So our Fedora has started up, and so I just wanted to show you, there it is. It's all working and going. Click the line up here at the top, and that gives you your little tools bar that you could show all your apps or go to the most used apps here. And these, of course, are the desktops that you have available. The desktops, that's something that you learn in the class. And we can see that the network was running here. The hard disk is running. And again, that's a file, right? That's within the file system. So keep in mind, let's just go to settings here. Keep in mind the fact that you can change your screen settings. But I tell people I wouldn't really worry about that, because you can do scaled mode here and let VirtualBox try to figure out how to represent what you have on the screen. And that usually works much better than just changing the settings in here. But yeah, it's working. Let's, at the same time, let me come back over here and we'll power up Kali. So we'll start Kali Linux running here, so that you can see it working, that the installs functioned, everything's great. And then in the next videos, I will show you how to do some advanced settings that you pretty much don't need to know how to do in order to get through a class, but they can be helpful, especially going into IT, going into cybersecurity. You will use VirtualBox or something a little fancier that basically is doing the same thing, right? It's doing the same thing as VirtualBox is. Some of the purchased products like VMware or Parallels for Mac, those are fancy. And there we are. Let's see. I cannot remember what I created this with. I think, let's see, let me try EAC. Anyway, you can see it running. I'm not sure what the password is that I put in there. Probably that password. Yeah, it is. And Kali Linux uses a different graphical user interface, and it has 4 screens. This is the way it has its 4 desktops. That's what I should say. So it's got some other tools up here showing you the processing power and the networking that's happening. Yeah, it's a different graphical system that we're using, which is actually an old version of GNOME that people really liked, and it's been moving forward. In any case, remember that once you get up here, you're actually dealing with VirtualBox, right? You're actually dealing, this is VirtualBox preferences and so on, not Kali's preferences. That's all below that bar, which is important. And of course, the same for Fedora, realizing where does the Fedora interface end? It ends here on this bar. That's what you would see on a standard computer. If this was just running on this machine, you'd see that title bar across the top right there. So these menus are all VirtualBox settings. It's important to remember that. All right, with Kali installed, we want to make sure the operating system is updated and the applications are updated. Right up here is the terminal. We can click that and we can issue commands with sudo,
Or I can, within Kali, drop this little arrow down and root terminal and log in once. Whoops. Terminal is a little different. It's in red, letting you know that you're logged in as root. And then I don't have to initiate sudo or use sudo. So we're going to use apt at the prompt. And if you just type apt, you will see the most used commands that are part of apt. And the first thing I would do is an update. Now, I'm going to get different results than you because I'm actually doing this on the Kali that I use. It's already been updated and so on. So mine's just going to like give me a little review and say you're all done. For you, you'll get something else. So I'm going to do apt update. Now, what this is going to do is going to update all those things that have been installed already. And here I can see it says, hey, there's 94 packages that can be upgraded. Hey, that's good. Right. That's awesome because I didn't think I'd be able to do anything on this. And then it gives you a hint and says you could run app list dash dash upgradable to see which ones. I'm not really concerned about that. So I'm going to just go ahead and tell it to upgrade. So we can use apt, and then you'll notice that upgrade is right here. However, for you, we're going to do a full upgrade. And a full upgrade is the system by removing and installing and upgrading the packages. So it's going to do quite a bit in a full upgrade. So I'm going to actually type that, full upgrade. Then I'm also, you can see it hinting to me there. Yours probably won't do that because I've typed this command before. And I'm going to put dash Y. Dash Y basically means, look, when you're doing all this, I mean, for heaven's sakes, if I just do this one, I'm going to get 94 packages. I don't want you to ask me each time, do you want to upgrade? Do you want to upgrade? Do you want to upgrade? So I'm telling it in advance, just go ahead and do what you're going to do. Now, what you see on the screen is that it's going through and getting these upgrades. It's going through and getting a lot of them. And this is going to take a while, right? This progress 3%, it's going to be running here for a while. So I'll pause it. In this progress, it's actually downloading things and then it will install them. So we'll let it start installing and then we'll come back. All right, after a while, we can see here, this actually gave us a little warning there that basically said, hey, you've done some updates and you're going to have to restart the system in order for that to work properly. So you can say it did all this, it did all the processing of everything. And then it also came up and said, looks like your kernel's up to date. We don't need to do anything with that, and so on. So that's all done. Basically, I have updated this system. And that's really how easy it is. I know that we're used to a graphical system. We're used to going in and clicking on something and clicking buttons, but it really is that easy on most versions of Linux to use, apt, not get. And then you can see it lists out what you can do with it, and away you go. Now, I want to show you one other thing, and it's called Kali tweaks. So I'm going to type in tweaks. And there it is. You can find it on the list if you would like to. But Kali tweaks, this is just running from a terminal window. That's what it did. It had actually initiated a terminal window and started this little program. So you can see it's kind of a command line thing. It's not really a graphical thing that's running, although I like the menus. It's great. This system is really meant for you to tweak whatever you want. If you're going to use this as, your standard Linux, which I don't do, but you are going to basically say, look, I only have room for one, so I'm going to run Kali. And then on top of that, I'm going to run whatever else I want to run in it. Then you'd want to do hardening. Kali is already hardened quite a bit, but you can configure the system for extra security. Meta packages is really what I wanted to show you. It installs specific subsets of tools. So let me hit enter on that and type in my password, because I got to have the rights to it. And you can see everything has an asterisk on it. That's because I did Kali Linux everything. If you go out to kalilinux.org, you can see what is defaultly installed. You can also add everything, and you can also go out there and see, okay, what is everything? And you can see all the different tools. I really wanted to play around with Kali, and so that's what I put in was Kali Linux everything. So you come down to the setting and then you hit spacebar on it. When it has an asterisk on it, that means I'm going to go ahead and do that. You do not need to asterisk everything. The reason that this is showing asterisks is because I went down at one time and told it asterisk install Kali Linux, and then you can tab to apply, or you can just click on it and hit enter, and it just starts going. And that's going to take quite a bit of time. Again, you could just get the top 10, or you could just get added Wi-Fi stuff. There's a lot of things you could do. So that's why I just said, okay, let's get everything. If you got room, I would recommend get everything. And then that's why this shows, again, that's why it shows all the asterisks, because when you run Kali tweaks, it goes in and goes, oh, okay, you've installed everything. Everything with an asterisk means you have it. So I don't need to do that. Actually, whoops, backed out of that a little too quickly. So let's do Kali tweaks again. Sorry. All right, below that is your network repositories, which you don't want to change. This is if you had actually stored locally repositories from Kali, stuff that's out there on the internet, and you put it on a server. So you don't really mess with that. Now, that was all configured when you started. You can also change your shell prompt. You can configure your prompt, how it looks, 2 lines, 1 line. This is what Kali used to be. It was called backtrack. So that's how it would look. Hitting tab, it's going to take you through those options. I don't want to change them. And you can change the login shell. I'm not going to describe that here, but you can look it up. And then, of course, you could say, oops, I screwed it all up. Let me reset it to defaults. And then the last thing is virtualization. I'm actually running this through Parallels on the Mac. And so it's going to say, I don't know what to do here. Parallels has its own stuff. So as soon as I installed Kali Linux in Parallels, it's like, oh, I got a bunch of tools for that. And it installed those with my permission. However, if you're running this in VirtualBox on a Windows machine, it'll actually say, oh, you're running in VirtualBox. It knows it. And it's installed any kind of performance tools that it needs to make it run faster. Really, that is it with Kali as far as what I wanted to show you. There's a lot of things you can do to mess around with it and tweak it the way you want, but it's got a lot of tools here, right? That's what we use in CCT 210 and 211 and Ethical Hacker, which is 235 and 236. You get to use some of these. There's a lot of tools. And if you're willing to, you can, again, just go out to Kali's site and what is this net exec? Right? You can look it all up. You can find that stuff. As a matter of fact, when you launch Firefox, which is what is installed normally within Linux, right here is like, here's the Kali tools. Let's check that out. And it says, okay, here's all the tools, right? So they give you all of that right here at the top and give you an idea of what to do within Kali. Thanks for watching. And if you need some more assistance or help, let me know. I'll help you out.